If local news coverage is dead, then call me Dr. Frankenstein, because I'm bringing it back to life. Welcome to Toronto, the Politics, the show. My name is Christopher Chesson. Today I have a fantastic guest, Mr. Rodney Chan. Rodney Chan has, not quite single-handedly, but he did a lot, helped make Church Street pedestrianized, opening it up for people, closing it to cars, in a way that has inspired pedestrianization policies to be passed at Toronto City Hall. I thought this was a fantastic conversation. I hope very inspirational for anyone else who hopes to do some good in this city. Rodney's a fantastic guy. I'm so excited for him to eventually run for Prime Minister of Canada and win. My conversation with Rodney here now. Rodney, thanks so much for joining me today on Toronto, the Politics, the show. How did the Church Street pedestrianization start?
It's been something I've been thinking about for a long time. Over 5 years at this point, I've been speaking with the community about it. Even if I didn't speak about it, other people would also bring it up. So it's not like some unique idea that was all mine. But one of my biggest inspirations was, if you ever go to Woody's and Sailor, which is kind of most busiest bar because there's no cover and it's just, there's bars, 5 bars inside and drag shows, and it's just kind of the go-to place. There's always massive lines that block the sidewalk. People come out to smoke and chat when it gets really hot outside. I have pictures where people are standing out on the street already, in the parking lane, and it's already kind of dangerous. So there's demand for more space. And we already pedestrianized it during Pride and Halloween, and there's so many crowds because there's such, and you see this with other street festivals around Toronto where it's so successful. It's why don't we do this more often or seasonally or permanently? After that, also going to Montreal, Rue St. Catherine in the Gay Village is also, they've been doing it for over 20 years, seasonally pedestrianizing it, and it's been so successful that they're doing it permanently now. So they're doing it year long. They resurface the road so it looks pretty. It's not just walking in the street with some bollards and some temporary art. Yeah, it's something that is possible, and even in our country, in Vancouver, in Ottawa, we can do this.
Yeah, let's get into the weeds here. So you write this blog post, people like it, people share it. It's an idea that's been in the ether for a while. How does that go to, now we're actually closing down Church Street for most of the summer, and the city has created a pathway for more pedestrianization across the rest of the city. Did you initiate the relationship with Councillor Moyes, or did they reach out to you?
Yeah,
how did that happen?
This first came about where last year I kind of created a conceptual map of what a pedestrianization would look like and which parts would be pedestrianized. So I originally proposed Dundonald to Carleton. So it's mostly Wellesley to Carleton and then 1 block north, because I wanted to connect the 519 and Barbara Hall Park. So it kind of went semi-viral within the Torontonian urbanist community. And Councillor Moyes' office actually reached out to me. They're hey, this is something we've also been interested in. And Councillor Moyes has also been to Montreal before and really appreciates the pedestrianization there. So they were let's work together to make this happen here. And I'm amazing, perfect. It was a very surreal moment. And it's still surreal now where it's oh my God, this is actually happening. I've been talking about it for 5 years and I never thought it would happen even in the next decade, knowing Toronto. So it's actually really renewed my hope despite kind of the process being very arduous. But yeah, for the last year, I've been working with the councillor's office, consulting with city staff and transportation services and emergency services and the police and community stakeholders and the residents association and the BIA. This was kind of a moment where all the stars aligned perfectly when you have the councillor on board. The BIA, I'm sure you know how much powers BIAs have in this city, and I'm so glad that the Church Wellesley BIA, who's run by Jared right now, shout out to Jared, he's been amazing on this. He gets his hands dirty. He's the one who's also painting the fences with us and setting up the patios. They're really spearheading this. They're putting money into this. And they really advocated for this as well. The Residents Association was also supportive. Pride, Toronto supported it. The 519 Community Center supported it. So
if you can get that triangle of councillor support, residents support, specifically the association, as well as the BIA, you can make basically anything happen in that geography.
Yeah.
Up until, I guess, maybe the police start getting involved, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
It did seem like you put in so much work ahead of time that when it finally came to a vote, there was no controversy. It went along so easily.
I mean, put a pin in that. But yeah, that
Okay.
triangle of counselor, residents, businesses, totally agree. But then there's the secret fourth one, which is like city staff. And they were the one who were not really on board and very concerned.
Oh, really?
And
I find that surprising. I'm actually surprised to hear that. I would have thought
that was
would have been more.
a really big thing because I understand that. So FIFA has been a big thing on their plate. So adding another thing to their plate, I get it. They also have a lot of concerns about safety, which like they're just doing their job, trying to make sure that this project is done safely. And also like, right, a project like this would normally like minimum 2 to 3 years of study and then maybe a pilot. And we did this all in 1 year.
Which does feel, very silly, right? Because it's we're not doing anything insane here, especially when there's not a transit route. I mean, I guess there's a bus that runs through church typically.
No. So that's a big reason. So there's buses that run parallel on Wellesley and on Carleton, but no buses run up and down Church Street. So it doesn't even disrupt transit. Actually, in one of the memos from transportation services or street events, they were like, oh, like closing this street would risk if any reroutes of other routes. And like, no, I've talked to people at the TTC, like, no, like people, there's Jarvis, there's Bay, there's Young, like they rarely run shuttle buses or diversions up and down Church Street. And if they want to, there's so many other options.
And then when we think even about why these diversions are happening, what's the most common reason? It's going to be because there's some sort of traffic collision on the street.
Yeah.
So we don't factor in then, well, what's the aggregate effect when we start reducing the number of cars that are trying to reach some of these highly populated areas like Church Street? You know what probably happens? I bet you also get less drunk driving. I bet you probably get less late night driving. And these sort of aggregate effects actually end up benefiting the overall traffic management in the city. And I think a lot of the motivation when people try to stop and delay and study and study and study is this sort of latent fear that maybe they're wrong, that maybe it is going to go okay. Because once you're able to demonstrate, like has been done here on Church Street, that this can happen and there aren't some massive consequences to the city, well, then you inevitably ask the question, well, why aren't we doing this everywhere? And if you are a Doug Ford conservative who's never left their house without 4 pieces of rubber getting you there, then to challenge that mode of transportation is to even challenge your own conception of what it means to be a human being. And I think that what we're going to see, I mean, my hope, Rodney, and I think, we're probably going to be part of this as well, is promoting this pedestrianization across Toronto for, you start to ask the question then, well, what streets can't we pedestrianize, right? Like, why wouldn't we do this when you think about the benefits of the business, the benefits of the people? Who's really upset anymore? It seems like in this case, the only people who are upset are maybe the police. What's going on right there in terms of the security availability on the street and the claims of costs overruns? What's going on there?
Yeah, so basically the only framework the city has for pedestrianization is a street event framework, right? So Doe West Fest, Pride, it's normally like a weekend closure, a few days. And right when we see those, there's massive crowds, so they anticipate the need for high security. We also they're very, very sensitive about hostile vehicle mitigation, which totally understand, get it. Toronto has a past of some car attacks, which we don't want. And the village is also a sensitive place with a lot of LGBTQ plus people, so that could also be a target. So we do have like those kind of a large, ugly claw-looking things at each of the intersections, and we tried to add fences with local queer art and pictures and stuff, which kind of make it look a little nicer. But the city said we needed security guards at every single intersection opening, so the security guards could open and close the things for emergency vehicles, which sure, fine. At the beginning, they're like, no, you need like police officers at every single one to open and close them. But yeah, on top of that, so we already have like 4 security guards at each of them to open and close them. And then we also have roaming security guards 24/7, depending on time of day and peak.
The roaming security guards is such a load of bullshit that the only time the Toronto police have any interest in operating as a beat cop is if they are getting whatever time and a half to work as these these rent-a-cops.
The security is like private. So private security is like we've been using because it's way cheaper than hiring the police. So we were originally, if you've seen the news, it's $3 million that the police asked. They wanted to like do 24/7 the whole 2 months, but we agreed to have pay security $250,000 to do most of the street roaming and opening and closing the
It doesn't make any
barriers.
sense. It's like if there was a car show, you're going to host a car show. Well, you know what's going to happen because of that car show happening in downtown Toronto? You're going to see in every arterial road adjacent to that car show speeding and stunt driving and people driving recklessly. Are the cops requesting for additional enforcement to handle that? No, of course not. But in this situation, because of just their own car dependency, they can't perceive that this is just actually going to make the area safer. Especially when you talk about the street festival dynamic of it all. You look at these massive crowds, it's because we're so starved for pedestrian spaces that, when Church Street closes for Pride, a couple of weekends in the summer.
We prefer the word open to pedestrians.
Excuse me, pardon. Of course. When you do that, then what happens is you create enough supply that you're not overwhelming during those weekends, and those safety concerns are not happening regularly. It becomes diffuse. There's an expression in theme park management of people eaters, which is where you're looking for certain events in order to have a lot of people be busy. And what's happened in Toronto is that you have one of these street festivals somewhere in the city. Once every neighborhood might only have one throughout the year. So what happens is the entire city just migrates from street to street to street to street to street in pursuit of this pedestrianization. And it's shocking that it's taken so long for people to recognize, if we just open up all these streets simultaneously, not only will those street festivals be safer, they're probably going to be a lot more enjoyable for people as well. I know, I used to manage the Cabbagetown Festival. It would be uncomfortable. It would get so packed that people wouldn't even want to be there anymore.
That's one thing. When there was a memo from the city about this project citing safety concerns about overcrowding and needing security. And one of the points when I deputed to council was that this is it's kind of like in COVID, we kind of talk about flattening the curve. We're spreading the demand out over 2 months. We don't need that much security. Makes it more safe and enjoyable, like you were saying. And there's so much pent up demand for this. I was actually talking to a police officer yesterday. I was on Church Street yesterday, and I was trying to be cordial. I didn't want to fight. I was like, why are there so many officers here? Was there an incident here? What's happening? And they're like, oh no, this is just a street event. It's normal for police to be here. I'm like, I thought this was over 2 months. Are there going to be this many officers over the 2 months? And they're like, yes, whenever there's public drinking, or not public, drinking in areas, there's going to be incidences and we have to be here to deal with it. And I was like, are there this many police in other main commercial strips in the city?
King Street.
And they're like, yes, there are. And I'm like, all right, sure. Okay. And I'm like, isn't 6 police officers on top of the security already kind of a lot for 2 blocks? And they're like, no, actually, I think there's under police. I think we need
there
more.
Should be more cops.
No, that's what they literally said. And I was talking, and he was a sergeant, not just any other police officer. He was wearing a special one that said sergeant. And I was like, how many more police officers do you think would be appropriate? And he was like, I can't say a number, but I know currently it's not enough. And I was like, okay.
1-to-1 ratio. Whatever it is, it's like the joke about how many bicycles you need. It's N+1. whatever we have, we need more.
Yeah.
It's such a joke.
And I was like, isn't there already I was like, I see a lot of security, private security here already. And they're like, we have different powers and we do different things. I'm like, okay, whatever. Bye. Thank you. So, and the city also, basically a lot of their barriers they put was how do you do garbage removal? How do you service deliveries, emergency vehicles? And I'm like, I'm sure no other city has ever figured this out. For deliveries, you can do it at different times of day. Yeah. We have the people there to open and close the gates for delivery services, delivery vehicles. I actually saw delivery happening last night where they would park on the cross street and you just have to walk 10 extra meters to get parking, whether as a customer or a loading bay is such a luxury to right in front of the business. Most of the world, that's prime real estate. And then
I think you're touching upon something really, really critical there is that I think that our understanding or just cultural understanding of comparative politics from a municipal perspective is so lacking that to ever attempt to apply policy based off of what has worked elsewhere is a non-starter for anyone. I think it also fits into this sort of like latent libertarianism and individualism that everyone wants to believe, which, of course is an extension of car dependency. So to ever say that, well, Toronto can replicate the kinds of policies that have been found in Montreal, well, that can't be the case because we're Toronto and we're different. And how dare you say that I'm similar to someone else, especially, someone who's French. And once you start to actually apply lessons and say that this worked elsewhere, you realize a lot of these problems we're experiencing in Toronto aren't that hard to tackle. It's not like we're the first city to experience traffic. The problem of how do we house, feed, and move people has been attempted to be solved for, since we first, banged each other on the heads with bones. I watched 2001: A Space Odyssey again for a little while. Have you seen that, Rodney? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen a lot of things I should watch. I think we suffer from we're so special, we're unique, it's a unique context. And I'm like, no, cities have pedestrianized wide streets, narrow streets, historic areas, new areas. Like, the world has pedestrianized streets like in every single context, and we can do it too. The reason why Rue St. Catherine is so inspirational for me, it's like literally the exact same thing. It's like 4 lanes wide. There's like sidewalks right next to like subway stations. There's parallel streets cars can take. So like we actually have a very similar context to other places. And like the city is really picky about like for garbage delivery. Like we're like, can we just let the garbage trucks in with the people we have? And they're like, no, that's like a safety issue. So right now we're like literally putting it on the BIA and volunteers where we've put out portable garbage cans and we have to like roll it to the side streets for garbage pickup, which is insane. Yeah, for emergency vehicles, we need both the center 2 lanes open. For emergency vehicles, like 1 isn't enough. So we can only put all our like chairs and tables like on the side, and they won't even let us paint the middle because, in Montreal, they kind of do this rainbow swirl or other street art in the middle. They're like, oh, when you paint it, you need to put pylons around it, and that's going to disrupt emergency services. I'm like,
I'm not, Rodney, you're working in the system. I long ago decided to, leave the system, burn all my bridges and just post videos on YouTube instead. So I will amend before I say what I'm about to say. I think more, Rodney does not co-sign this. More people need to just start doing shit. Just start painting the street, putting up barricades, closing streets, painting crosswalks especially, I think is a big win that people can do without any sort of city involvement. I've costed it a lot. You can, for like $500, you can buy yourself a machine and just paint a crosswalk and make your neighborhood a lot safer. And I think doing stuff like that would be such a great way to demonstrate to the city how much time they're wasting. I think that sometimes maybe folks who are more left-leaning can be not so sympathetic to those who accuse City Hall of like slow walking things, because often the people who talk about city staff, not being effective tend to not have fantastic politics. But I think there as well, you got to be very empathetic with city staff of people. You'll never find someone like, it's so tough to work at a private company and to manage the various policies and rules that some independent company has to manage. Then imagine you're at a private company and every day you have a few thousand people telling you what an idiot you are. It's not a very easy job to have, I imagine. And I think that leads them to have this very defensive posture. You can't have that role and be very ambitious or try to dream beyond whatever the bylaws say today, because you know that if you are going to step out of that, you're risking your life. You might be the one who's criticized if things go wrong. So if something like a crosswalk or, some of these street closures, I think it's when that neighborhood says, yeah, maybe the city said we needed to, go through this 2-long-year stakeholder engagement process to say why a crosswalk is needed here. Maybe we can do that on our own.
Yeah. So that's why shout out to TTC riders. That's why I love the guerrilla urbanism they do. Like the Dufferin, we literally have a bus that people call the Suffering Dufferin because of how slow it is. So TTC riders said, and it was on the rapid TO list but the timeline was so long and engagement was so long and we know we needed it. So they just went and painted it overnight. They did one section. Obviously the city had the time and money to just pressure wash it the next day, but it made the news and made it a thing. And now we have bus lanes on Dufferin. Well, because of FIFA, we were really pressured, but because of continued advocacy from like TTC riders, they also did a wayfinding thing where they our wayfinding is horrendous, as most people know. They did an alphanumeric kind of signs around King one morning. Obviously the TTC took it down immediately, but then there was a motion to improve wayfinding. And if you look at a few key stations now, they have a alphanumeric wayfinding. So yeah, like just doing it yourself with your community or with an advocacy group is such a great way. I've seen in other cities, people will just put a bench at bus stops and like it's all these small little things that add up. And if you're fed up with the city, sure, go do it yourself. But I also think we need the systemic change. I've been really kind of touched upon, like, we need, other people are like, oh, we need more Rodneys. And I'm like, yeah, like I've been really jaded about I'm literally in school to become an urban planner. And even I'm like, is this worth it? Like every single zoning bylaw amendment, every official plan amendment, every transportation master plan has to be approved by council and so much consultation with residents. Like what's even the point? And so most people have disbelief in the system that they don't even think it's worth fighting for anymore. And I was kind of there. But yeah, this project has given me a lot of hope. And you kind of talked about like other streets in the city that we can do. There was an article recently about, the wider pedestrian framework. So Councillor Chris Moyes and Josh Matlow put forward a motion for a wider city framework for other streets in an actual formalized process, so we don't have to do this whole street event thing that needs so much security and so much random scrutiny. But yeah, the Ossington BIA director said that they're like keen to explore pedestrianization. Ossington is a little bit more tricky because that one actually has a bus that runs through it, but you can divert it to Shaw or another street. But a lot of cities actually do like pedestrian and transit together, and it works really well. A lot of people are craving that on King, right? We've had this, it's been in like pilot mode for like almost a decade now. It needs to look like a more pretty street. We kind of talked about people diverting and stuff, and right when we did the King Street pilot, people were like, oh, it's going to cause congestion and whatnot. According to the data, it shows there was like negligible impacts on parallel streets, and it's because people like change their routes. They start taking the streetcar. They work from home. They change their trip times. And the King streetcar became more reliable, faster. And I think there's so many examples of successes in the city that we really have to replicate. We always talk about international best practice, which we also need to do more. But like there's so many things within the city that, yeah, we need to really start looking at.
Well, Rodney, you've definitely put some hope into my soul because I was definitely feeling very dejected about the potential for pedestrianization in any Canadian city. I mentioned this to you, and if anyone would like to watch a younger me on the verge of tears talking about my pedestrianization attempts in Calgary, there's a video available on my YouTube channel. But I couldn't help but feel like there was a very interesting just Toronto versus Calgary comparison here for that reason, where what happened was in 2023, it's so long ago now, I had started a small petition to pedestrianize 17th Avenue in Calgary, which is, maybe the closest parallel would be, it's tough. It's because it's sort of a bloor, but without as much of the transit availability. But I started this petition. I think we should pedestrianize it. There was some whispers by the BIA at the time that they were doing some consultation. They were very shady about releasing the results. We found out later because they were, in support of pedestrianization, even amongst some of the businesses and especially amongst the community. So I started this petition saying, hey, I think the BIA should reconsider this. And I sent an email to the executive director, Talene Steitzel, and she wrote back to me with a letter saying that she was in contact with the BIA's lawyers because they think I was being defamatory, claiming that by me saying that the BIA would improve safety for pedestrians by pedestrianizing, that I was saying that they were putting people in harm's way, that I was being defamatory. And it was really, really shocking. And it was very, very upsetting for me at the time because as someone who really cares about BIAs and thinks that they're very powerful, it really sucked to see a BIA be weaponized to not represent what the residents want, which the Resident Association was in favor of, but what the business owners want. And this is kind of a dynamic that's going to occur in any neighborhood and city, is that there's always going to be differing priorities from the business community versus the resident community. And I think Church Wellesley is maybe it's the best case scenario, right? Where I feel as though the residents and the businesses are very, intertwined. It's a community, of course. What's the hardest pedestrianization is going to occur is when there's a bit more of a community divide, is when the people who frequent those neighborhoods, who visit and are, come around are not necessarily cut from the same cloth of the businesses who own, or the people who own those businesses. A lot of business owners don't even live in Toronto if they operate a business in Toronto. They're more concerned about finding parking in front of their business than necessarily trying to achieve some sort of marginal gain. And it should be said that, pedestrianization, I think, has been very clear, and we've seen it on Church Street especially, is good for business. I'm sure any economic data is going to show that Pride was one of the most fruitful Prides there's been, and that's going to continue throughout the rest of the summer. But there are some areas in the city which do rely on car-based transport, and the question is going to be whether those business owners, the ones whose customers are maybe coming in and saying they had a hard time finding parking, whether they're ever going to be willing to change. Whether some of these BIAs, who are have maybe been operating for decades and decades by people who drive in and out, it's tough to imagine them necessarily seeing a sea change. That's why I think it's so important, Rodney, and I so appreciate that you are doing this, is promoting how well this is going and being that spokesperson to say that pedestrianization is possible, it is doable, and people like it, and it's going to be good for your business too. So I'm so excited to see where else your journey takes you, and I'm happy that you are fighting for this on the Toronto scene. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts? When can we expect your announcement for a council run, by the way?
I honestly, I think I want to work in the field in urban planning for like a decade, gain experience, maturity, and then maybe I'll think about a council run. I don't want to be just one of those fresh out of school, lifetime politicians.
Although some of them, hey, they're not all bad. Some people, might be 25 or something and running for council.
Yeah. It's really exciting. You talked about seeing it as a success. We actually have 8 ADCDs doing a public life study. So they did pedestrian counts and kind of quantifying what kind of pedestrian and street activities happened before the pedestrianization, during the pedestrianization, and after. We also have some surveys before, during, and after. We also partnered with Main Street Canada, which can monitor every single business transaction across the corridor. So we can monitor if there's been an increase, decrease, how many. So yeah, we'll really quantify if this is a success or not. So everyone, please come to Church Street this summer and boost up those sales numbers. Yeah. But
especially,
even
POS, I guess cash is harder to track.
Yeah. But you talk about, even in this case where all the stars are aligned, everyone wants this pedestrianization because we have a council, and a lot of things that are local are decided by a citywide council. So Councillor Brad Bradford, who is currently a councillor. A counselor for Beaches East York and is running for mayor, is kind of like the anti-Chow right now. He put a poison pill, put forward a motion saying we should be able to shut down this pedestrianization pilot at any time if there are impacts that are deemed quote unquote unacceptable. And he was challenged, what does unacceptable mean? That a resident calls saying it's too noisy, or what is it? And it said up to city staff discretion. And then again, it's what does that mean? And it's just we've talked about it. It's city staff discretion is up to their expertise. And I just find it so insane that our city already loves pilots, and we feel the need to pilot the pilot, shut down the pilot early if needed. The whole point, it's literally 2 months, 2 blocks. The whole point is to see it through. A lot of times people will have to adjust in the first week or even month, whether they're driving or walking or whatnot. But no, I'm really excited. Not only has this kind of prompted a citywide framework, but Church Street is actually being resurfaced in 2 to 3 years.
Oh, really?
People have seen there's been a bunch of sinkholes and stuff because the water main needs to be replaced. There's actually a river there that we buried over to build Church Street. But the BIA has a master plan that they want to see where it's a reduction to just 1 lane both ways. So the parking spaces can be used for amenity areas, loading bays, trees, seating, tables. And I really hope they kind of add a flexible way where kind of those extendable bollards that can be put in place more easily for a seasonal pedestrianization or event. So I really hope that this pilot really informs how the street is constructed in the future. So yeah, it's a really exciting time to be a Torontonian. Not only with pedestrianization, we're finally talking about the speed of our streetcars. We're finally talking about allowing more housing and missing middle housing. The needle has suddenly been moving a lot faster than expected these last 5 years. So people really should get out, talk to your counselors, run for council, join a BIA, join a residents association.
Close down a street.
Yeah.
Buy some Jersey barricades and put them up outside your door. Satire parody. Rodney, where can people find you? What's the best place to find you online?
On Instagram and Twitter, I'm at _ChanFace, and Blue Sky, I'm at chanface.bisky.social.
You got a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I have a podcast called Dwell Time. Dwell Time is the kind of time that buses or trains like stop in a station, and we talk about transit advocacy in Canada and around the world. And if you're a transit advocate, we'd love to have you on. I'm also the co-lead at TriTag, Tri-Cities Transport Action Group in Waterloo. We advocate for better walking, transit, and cycling in the Tri-Cities, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area. So you can just find us online there as well. So yeah, there's like a lot of like advocacy groups out there, and I know a lot of people want to get involved, don't know how to. Like, just reach out, and like people are always looking for more volunteers and more help. So you just have to like look around and explore, and feel free to shoot me a DM.
Great way to make friends, I think. I think this is spoken about. Yeah, if you need something to do this summer.
Yeah, people are always like talking about lack of community, like lack of third spaces, lack of whatever, and it's been really fun. Like a lot of the volunteers that have been helping us build the patios and paint the patio fences and whatnot are my friends, and I've like forced them to come with me. But I've met so many other new volunteers there, and met so many new friends, and right, I guess I don't know, like those are the friends we made along the way. That's the whole point of the pedestrianization, is we needed more community space. I mean, last night I was just posting on Instagram. I have so many more spontaneous interactions now. Like when I bump into people, I can chat with them and not like feel like I'm blocking the sidewalk. Having more street-facing patios. I saw my friend eating. We had like a chat. Like,
oh, that's such a good point. Even just blocking the sidewalk on a church street like that.
Yeah, wow. And that I was talking before, right? Like people in line, smoking or whatever. Like it's always you have to like walk in the street anyway. Yeah. So I have so many pictures of this, and I'm so happy to share more and hopefully create more video content as well on Reels and TikTok. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking about pedestrianization and urbanism. I could talk about this for hours.
You should start a podcast. Oh, right. Great. Rodney, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. And thank you so much to Rodney. If you enjoyed this show, you know what to do. Check us out. We've got all the various social media sites. We've got clips. We got the podcast. We got the YouTube. We're doing the things you need to do to ensure that Toronto has a vibrant local news coverage hosted by me specifically. Thanks for stopping by.